Episode 8 of the new Star Wars show Skeleton Crew just dropped, and I wanted to share my thoughts on the whole show. Hi everyone, I hope y'all are doing fine. Happy New Year to every single one of you. This year I want to make more videos, but it's pretty hard to be productive when I want to survive in this modern economy, you know? So if you want to help me out, subscribe to this channel and leave a like or dislike if you want. With all that yapping said, let's start this review. Spoilers alert for the rest of the video. Before giving my opinion on the show, let's have a little look at the official information surrounding this show. Skeleton Crew is the newest Star Wars show on Disney+. It contains 8 episodes with an average duration of 40 minutes per episode. The first episode premiered on December 2nd, 2024, and the next episode were released weekly after that. This show was created by Christopher Ford and John Watts. Here's the official description of the show. Star Wars Skeleton Crew follows the journey of 4 kids who make a mysterious discovery on their seemingly safe home planet, then get lost in a strange and dangerous galaxy. Finding their way home and meeting unlikely allies and enemies will be a greater adventure than they ever imagined. The main cast of this show contains Jude Law, Ravi Cabot-Conyers, Ryan Kiara Armstrong, Robert Timothy Smith, Kiriana Crater, and Nick Frost. Here's its rating on IMDb and on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm just putting it on screen so you have an idea of what critics think of this show. But honestly, who gives a shit about what Rotten Tomatoes says, you know? Just make your own opinion on the show. Now, with all that important information said, let's have a little look at some additional information that I want to look up before criticizing this show. Like past projects that the creators of this show worked on before. Let's start with Christopher Ford. He mostly is credited as a writer, but also as a screenplay writer. He worked on Spider-Man Homecoming and also on a movie called Clown, which I know of because I've seen some clips of this movie years ago on TikTok, LMAO. So he does have history with John Watts. The rest of the projects that he worked on, I sadly haven't heard of them before. What about John Watts? Well, you probably know him for the last Spider-Man trilogy directed. I personally have no opinion on him because I haven't watched a lot of his stuff. But I have a friend who says that he has no personality in his opinion. So that's the only opinion I've ever heard about John Watts. Both of the creators never worked on a Star Wars project before. So before watching this show, I wasn't really confident about its success. But hey, everyone deserves a chance, you know? Also, John Watts said 2 years ago, it's the story of their journey trying to find their way home. It stars 4 kids, but it is not a kids show. So I guess it will not be that bad, you know? Because if it was targeting a younger audience, I don't know how long I would have lasted in front of my screen without being bored. Another thing that was highlighted during the whole marketing phase of this show is Jude Law's presence. You might know this actor for his performance as a young Albus Dumbledore in the Fantastic Beasts saga, or as young Rogue in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or as Dr. John Watson in the early 2010s Sherlock Holmes movies. Here I just mentioned some of his biggest roles, but he really did have a bigger career than that, just so you know. I feel like Lucasfilm were counting too much on this actor to bring more audience to the Star Wars franchise. Like, it's a really common thing for production companies to highlight their top cast in the marketing phase of their movies and TV shows, you know? But it's pretty much the only thing I've heard about Skeleton Crew, honestly. The Jude Law meat writing was crazy. Enough context said, let's enter today's topic. Let's start by mentioning what I liked about this show. One thing that I mentioned previously was how Jude Law was highlighted throughout the whole marketing of this show. After watching the show, I understand why. He is a great actor, and his performance here is impeccable. He makes his character so fascinating, which I'm still not sure what his name is, but according to IMDb, his name is Jodna Nawood, so let's call him that. I really like how manipulative his character is. He is a selfish, greedy parrot who will backstab anyone in his way. and I find this character's personality mixed with Jude Law's performance to be really interesting and amazingly performed. The aspect I like the most about Judd is actually his manipulative personality. He's capable of making the other characters and the viewers question his sayings. We've been told not to trust him throughout the episodes, but we somehow still want to believe him deep down until he finally did what we've been told he would do. And that's the magic of Jude Law's acting skills. Another thing that the Star Wars universe is known for is its visuals. The costumes that some actors wore are pretty good looking, except maybe Brutus and Neil, because they are literally so hard to make look real. Honestly, hats off to the makers of these costumes, because they did an excellent job. The props used in this show are also pretty realistic, so great job there too. The CGI also did look pretty nice. I honestly can't talk shit about it because I cannot do better than that, lol. The locations also look pretty good and different from each other, which is nice because you don't want the creators of this show to copy-paste planets and reuse too many aspects of these planets because it would become too repetitive. Another thing that I like from this show is the deep dive into the pirates world. We learned more about how pirates crew works and we learned more about their codes. Throughout the project of this franchise, the focus was more on the Jedi, the Siths, the clones, the rebels, and the Empire. But we never really had too much focus on pirates. It's nice for once to have the focus of a story on a less known group of people in the galaxy, like they did with The Mandalorian. Even if I find some of the pirate codes to be a little weird, I'm still happy that they dive into it. Another thing that I liked is the relation between Jod and the kids. I like how twisted it is. Jod manipulated the kids throughout their whole journey, and we, as the viewer, have been repeated again and again how untrusted he needs to be. But the kids really wanted to go back to their home planet, and he was pretty much their only way in because they couldn't have done it alone, and Jod made sure to keep them in line with his plan. I feel like their relation is pretty well described, and it makes the viewers question the truthfulness of this character's intentions. I feel like their relation is pretty well described, and it makes the viewer question the truthfulness of this character's intentions. Another thing that I liked was the introduction of At Attin. It's a new planet that I believe was never mentioned before the creation of this show. It's the kids' home planet, and it is a civilized and well-organized planet. It is also known by pirates as a legend hiding a big treasure. I personally fell in love with this lovely planet. I love how well organized it is and how they implemented a working society similar to ours. I also like how important this planet is to the plot. It makes the story more interesting because as the viewer, we know about its existence, but the galaxy seems to believe that it doesn't exist anymore. During the last episode's events, the planet was attacked by pirates and they destroyed some of its aspects, which is nice because it actually impacts the story and links the previous episodes that made the viewers emotionally attached to this planet. So we felt heartbroken by this attack, which adds more stakes to this show. Another thing that I like is the diversified catalog of characters. Each character is different, whether it's their physical traits or their personalities. They all bring something different to the screen, and that's something that I like, especially the kids. Imagine how boring this show would have been if all the kids had the same personality. I would have hated this show if it was about 4 whims.
You're the worst one.
Finally, the last thing that I liked about this show is the sound design. It really used the same formula as previous Star Wars movies. The SFX used are really nice and satisfying. The score in the background during action sequences has a nice revisited Star Wars style, let's say. Overall, I like the sound in general. It's one of Lucasfilm's best departments. I believe the sound was made and mixed at Skywalker Sound, a well-known company with a great reputation. Anyways, that's pretty much all I enjoyed during this show. Now, I am going to mention what I found okay during my watch time. The first thing that I found okay during my watch time is the story. It's really not incredible, it's just good enough. The problem I have with recent Star Wars projects is the importance these projects have on the Star Wars universe in general. You see, Star Wars is a franchise with an infinite amount of possible stories. I don't really like that Lucasfilm makes stories with little impact on their overall Star Wars universe and use no revolution technologies or use just no revolutionary stories, you know? Once upon a time, Star Wars was revolutionizing to the world. Now it's just a money machine that has little effort put in the originality of the projects created. Don't get me wrong, I love watching Star Wars projects that are canonally correct. Not like some of these past projects, if you know what I mean. But I just want them to do something new. Something fresh and revolutionary. The Mandalorian Season 1 was something like that, because they brought a new, refreshing vision and style to the franchise. What is something new and refreshing that Skeleton Crew brought to this franchise? And don't say pirates, because I would not agree with you. I can't really think about anything. It's just a simple story. And that's my problem with the modern Star Wars projects. But apart from that, this story is just fine. Another thing that I find okay in this project is the kid actors' performances. Usually, kid actors are not incredible actors, and in this show, I wasn't impressed by their performance, let's say. One of them annoyed me though, and it's Win.
You're the worst one!
Ravi Cabot-Conyers, in my opinion, did not deliver greatly. I'm not attacking the kid, because I don't want him to do a Jake Lloyd moment, you know? I'm just criticizing and saying my opinion. He would have been recast and maybe I would have liked Wim's performance better, but I don't think I would have liked the character itself better, because I hate this character. Another thing that I find okay in these projects are the action sequences. I did not say wow neither explicitly or in my head while watching these sequences, you know? They were not boring, but let's just say that the show was not carried by them, you know? Another thing that I find okay in this project is its darker tone. Hey, I'm all for dark stories in the Star Wars universe, but I feel like they still wanted that show to be PG, you know? So I feel like they did not go fully dark yet. They limited themselves for sure. I'm still waiting for that day where we'll see a darker Star Wars project, a real one. Another thing that I find okay in this project is the score by Michael Giacchino. No, not this one, this one. I guess that's why his name on Spotify is Mick Giacchino, so that we don't confuse them, LMAO. So the younger Michael composed the score for the show, which honestly is not as memorable as other scores from previous Star Wars projects, you know? He's not a John Williams or a Ludwig Göransson yet, but he did his job correctly. Another thing that I find okay in this project is the emotional tone between the children and the parents. I honestly did not feel the sadness of losing a child enough, but I think it's just me. Maybe because I am a psychopath. But seriously, I don't know if it's the acting performances or the story, but I honestly did not believe some of the attachments some of these parents had to their children, you know? Maybe they lacked into the dialogues, I don't know, but anyways, that's just how I feel. Another thing that I find okay in this project is the character development for the kids. I feel like the only thing they gain from their adventure is courage. It's really fine, but I wish their adventure could have had more impact on their person or on their future. I feel like it's not clear enough if we'll ever see these kids again, or if they learned some stuff from this journey and that they will apply these lessons in their future. Anyways, maybe the real Skeleton Crew is the friends we made along the way. Another thing that I find okay in this project are the dialogues between characters. I feel like Star Wars always had a problem with its dialogue, and this show doesn't change that. Obviously, children will speak like children, but some of the lines, even for the adults, are kind of corny. Chad, did I use this expression right? Did I use the expression right? Did I use the word corny right? If you're looking for well-developed chatting between characters, I don't believe this show is for you. Finally, the last thing that I found okay in this project is the usage of frame. I feel like most of the time the frame has a pretty basic look, but sometimes there are beautiful shots too. The problem I have is that these beautiful shots don't appear as much. They come from time to time, but most of the time, the frame is just basic. I really wish the frame would have had a prettier and more unique style. I really hope to be surprised in the next Star Wars project. Anyways, that's pretty much all I found okay in this show. Now, let's talk about what I disliked during my watch time. The first thing that I dislike about this show is the lighting. I can't see shit most of the time. Why is it so dark? I know y'all said you wanted to give this show a more darker tone, but I didn't think you would have done it this way. The colors are beautiful in this show, but the intensity of the lightning ruins it all for me. Another thing that I dislike about this show is the back and forth between Judd and the kids sometimes. On so many occasions, Judd and one kid had a debate and it ended up being just a battle of reverse cards or a Wii Sport tennis match. The know you thing was too ridiculous for me, and that's how we learned about pirate codes, which makes me mad. We could have learned these codes during serious situations instead, and it would have been so much better. Another thing that I dislike about this show is the little importance they gave to the pirate crew. Most of the side characters have an importance to the show, like the parents. But what about the pirates? The parents had some scenes where we saw them look out for their kids and ask authorities about them. They had an emotional development throughout the show. But what about the pirates? Well, they either got nothing or they got killed. That's how important they are to the creators of this show. Apart from Brutus, none of the pirates had any sort of development or an interesting story to develop on. That's pretty sad in my opinion. Another thing that I dislike about this show is its humor. It's really bad and repetitive, especially in the early episodes where you discover the tone of this show. I feel like it might be why some people, like my friend, dislike John Watts. I remember only laughing at one joke in the John Watts project.
It's been an honor, Spider-Man.
What are you doing here? There's a dance.
I'm looking at porn.
This show about children has children jokes. What a surprise. But not every child project has a humor that bad. For example, Pixar can make really funny jokes in movies targeting a younger audience. Why can't Star Wars do the same? Another thing that I dislike about this show is how difficult some of the events and decisions taken are to understand. As a non-native English speaker watching this show in English, I had some trouble understanding what was happening. Maybe it's my fault for not watching what was going on screen because I was more interested in Instagram Reels. But yeah, I feel like some moments were passing in some weird way because maybe the writers took the initiative to make some scenes less developed, so it could be easier for them to write these scenes. I can't be sure about what I just said because I am not a writer on this project. But I feel like they didn't put too much effort into the realism of these scenes and they took some easier paths. For example, when Judd destroyed the supervisor. Now you're going to tell me that all the city's power comes from there. I don't believe it. I believe that the writers wanted to take a break and wanted to take an easier path. Now, I am going to talk about a hot subject. I might be controversial here, so I'm sorry in advance. Another thing that I dislike about this show is Wim. I hate this character. He's the stereotype of the character that does exactly the opposite of what he's been told to do. I feel like in 2025, we should be over this pattern of characters because I don't necessarily find them interesting. Wim just destroys everything he touches, and despite the creator's attempt to make the viewer like Wim, it doesn't work, for me at least. As one of the main characters, you need to be at least a little bit interesting and enjoyable to watch. But he is neither of these in my opinion. It makes the show less fun to watch, in my opinion. Again, y'all can count how many times I said in my opinion in this video already because I'm trying to be non-objective, you know? Tell me how annoying I am in the comment section down below, please. Another thing that I dislike about this show is the pacing. I feel like this show suffers from the same problem as the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. It should have been a movie. The story is too long for what it does. It could have been more enjoyable as a film, in my opinion. But we all know that Disney wanted to keep their audience on Disney Plus for the longest time possible. That's the reason why, in my opinion, this project became a show instead of a movie. Finally, the last thing that I dislike about this show is its ending. Was I satisfied by the ending after giving so many hours of my personal time to this show? Absolutely not. Well, not absolutely. I think I gained some good watch time from it, but the ending was not satisfying for the whole show. There's no real conclusion. The kids retrieve KB, they find out that she's alive, and some spaceships enter the planet, and that's it. No aftermath, just ends during the end of the action. I'm not satisfied by it, and I think they should have ended it with an aftermath. And so, with that all said, what did I think of this show overall? Well, I had some good time watching it. I honestly think that it is too long for what it is. It's not incredible, but it's passable, so I'll give it a 6 out of 10. What did y'all think of this show? Leave a comment down below to share me your thoughts. Leave a like or a dislike if you want, subscribe if you want more content like this, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!